What's up? Welcome to episode 17 of Jar Sports Takes. It's been a busy 24 hours for the Dallas Cowboys with free agency coming up next week. Legal tampering period starts Monday. Official free agency window starts on Wednesday. But before I get into the free agency news, Zach Martin just had his press conference that he is retiring. Very sad to see, one of the best offensive linemen of all time go. Another guy that, played for Dallas, had a great career, and we just couldn't do anything with. Obviously, had an off year this year, was hurt. Sad to see him go, but, with the young guys like Hoffman coming up, it does look promising for that right guard position, but it is sad to see, a leader and like an absolute Dallas Cowboy leave the building. So, like I said, past 24 hours been very busy for the Dallas Cowboys. The biggest news is Osa Odighizuwa got signed to a deal, 4 years, about 80 million, about 55 guaranteed. Great signing. Very, very surprised it happened already in March before free agency. Very different from what it was last year when we waited to sign CD and sign Dak until, the very last minute. So, congrats to them for actually getting this done at a reasonable time. They also restructured CD's deal, which saves about 20 million in the cap space this year. We also signed offensive lineman Brock Hoffman to a deal. We signed special teams specialist CJ Goodwin to a deal, and we signed DB Juwanye Thomas to a deal. So, Cowboys getting things done at a surprisingly early date. I'm just as surprised as any Dallas fan out there. Another big thing, cap space went up this year about 23.8 million, so that makes the cap 279.2 million for this season. So currently, when I'm making this video, we have 17.7 cap space right now to sign some guys next week, but it could go up to 87 million if my math is correct. If they do restructure Dak, which could save 37 million. If they restructure Diggs' deal, could save 5 million. If they cut or restructure some of our safeties like Hooker or Wilson, could save about 10 million. And the biggest, which I want them to get done ASAP, is if they extend Micah, get him to a long-term deal, could save potentially 18 million on the cap space this season. Ideally, I would love for this to be done before free agency starts on Monday, technically, but knowing the Dallas Cowboys probably going to take a little longer than that. So the Dallas Cowboys have always been big about, keeping the guys in-house, guys they drafted, let's keep them, let's extend them, let's take care of them. So before I get into, free agency, I want these guys to be re-signed. I want D-Law to be re-signed. He's a vet in the locker room. There's no denying he's a great run stopper. Probably the best run stopper on the defensive line. I know he's aging. I know he just had a major injury, but it's nice to keep guys like that in-house. According to Spotrac, I use this for all these contracts that I'm about to name. D-Wall will probably demand 24 million over 2 years. J-Lo, another guy, very underrated guy in the NFL, one of the best nickel corners in the league, if not the best in my opinion. He demand 4.6 million over 2 years, which that's a hell of a deal. That's very cheap for him, especially, keeping a guy in rotation when our DB room is a little shaky at this point. Eric Kendricks just came off a very good season, led the team in tackles. I know he's getting a little older, but he still can be a staple in that defense at middle linebacker. He's demanding about 6.8 million for a 1 year deal. I'm all for that. That's not too bad. Chauncey Golston would be next up on the defensive line. He came out, towards the end of the year and really showed out, had a decent amount of sacks. He would demand about 21 million over 3 years. And that's a guy I would not like compete with other teams to pay. Like if he gets a better deal somewhere else, so be it. A lot of people might not agree with this next one, but Trey Lance. I personally like Lance. I think he can be a number two guy behind Dak. Let's hope he doesn't have to play at all, but God forbid he comes in. He didn't look bad the last game of the season last year. He would demand about 2.1 million for 1 year. And I would assume he'd probably get other looks elsewhere. And then last but not least, keeping in-house is Rico, obviously coming off his first 1,000-yard season. Him being the number two guy to whoever we draft in this draft coming up will be a great asset, in my opinion. 6.2 million for a year deal. That's nothing. I would assume he's another guy that's probably going to get looks elsewhere also, but if he wants to stay in Dallas, take a team-friendly deal, and say we do restructure all them guys beforehand, like I said, and all them re-signing, we'd have about 51 million left in cap this season alone. So that's a lot of room to work with, to sign some of these new key guys that could help us win some games next season. And some of these guys are long shots. Like I don't expect Dallas to go out and try to get them. But some of these guys I am going to name, it does seem like a possibility. I have heard rumors on Twitter elsewhere about, them maybe going after them once free agency starts. First, Stephon Diggs, for obvious reasons. He's talked about he's wanting to play with his brother on the same team. I know he's coming off a major ACL injury. He's getting a little older in age, but he's a playmaker and he doesn't have to be number one here. Like next to CD, I think it would be a great addition. It's better than having Brandon Cooks, better than having Jalen Tolbert out there to start the season, especially if they drafted receiver number one or in the second round. I don't see any disadvantage to it other than him costing 13.5 mil for 1 year. He only played 8 games last season, just under 500 yards and 3 touchdowns. Another guy that would be cheaper at receiver is KJ Osborne. I loved him in Minnesota. He played for New England last year, then he got no snaps there. Then he went to Washington mid-season. Played only 8 games, 57 yards, and 1 touchdown. Obviously, did not have the type of production he would want. He averaged over 600 yards per season and 5 touchdowns in Minnesota over 3 seasons. So he has the abilities. If we draft a receiver number one, he can easily be a number three or number four guy with Jalen Tolbert right there. Definitely would be a team-friendly deal. Probably only costs about 2.4 million for a year. And funny enough, as I'm recording this video, DK Metcalf just requested a trade. Tyler Lockett just got released from Seattle also just earlier. And Christian Kirk just got released from the Jaguars not too long ago, too. So there is more receivers on the market, a lot of veteran guys. I don't think they would go after DK. Devontae Adams is another guy that just got released yesterday as I'm making this video. Love him. I think he's the best route runner in the NFL, but it's just not a guy I think Dallas will go after. Another guy people talked about is Amari Cooper. I just don't see him coming back, especially with how it ended. I don't think it's realistic. Staying on the offensive side of the ball, here's another guy that I do think it's a very realistic chance he comes to Dallas. Will Hernandez, he was drafted by the Giants. He's played the past 2 seasons in Arizona, and he has a connection to our new OC, Clayton Adams. Obviously played under him on the offensive line. He'd probably demand about 4.3 million over 2 years. He's 6'2", 332 pounds. He's only 29 years old, and he didn't allow a sack last year. With Zach Martin leaving, he could step in that guard position if they don't want Hoffman, if they don't think Hoffman's the guy yet. I just see this being a fit where he wants to come play for his coach he just played for and a bigger opportunity. I feel like this is a very realistic situation rather than the rest of these guys I'm about to name. So I can really see this happening. So defensively, I'll go with a long shot. Josh Sweat, DN from the Eagles. I don't see this happening at all. He demand 18.8 over 3 years. Just don't think that would happen. He's had at least 7 sacks in the past 4 seasons. He had a great, great playoff run to help the Eagles win that Super Bowl. Just not a realistic thing, in my opinion. It'd be cool to see them get a top end guy. So, more realistic deal on the defensive line that I think could happen is BJ Hill. He would demand 18 mil over 2 years. Big run stopping type of guy that Dallas Cowboys desperately, desperately need. This is one I can see actually happening. Another route they could go is linebacker Kaiser White. He's played for the Eagles. He's played for Arizona. Most recently, he would demand 5.8 over 2 years. He has 3 seasons with 100 plus tackles in his career. He's just another guy that could go alongside Eric Hendricks, especially with Overshown being out probably most of the season, if not all of the season, depending on how his recovery goes and rehab. I just think it would be a good idea to just get another veteran guy rather than go draft a guy and don't have to draft a guy too early at the linebacker spot when you have other needs like running back, receiver, defensive line, DB, rather than go linebacker so early in the draft. And lastly, a former Dallas Cowboy, Charvarius Ward. He would demand 15.3 per year over 3 seasons. As a rookie, he was a Cowboy before he got traded to KC. Obviously won a Super Bowl over there before going to San Fran. Most recently, 2023, he had 5 interceptions. He had a bit of a fall off last year. He had some family issues last season also, which, could be a reason for the decline. But he does want out of San Fran. He made it seem like at the end of the season, he wants to go, get away from some of the family trauma that happened in San Francisco. So maybe come back and be a Dallas Cowboy. I wouldn't mind it. Another veteran on the outside. Definitely need another corner going into next season. Obviously, with Diggs coming off injury, only got Bland out there. Carson's also coming off the injury. So need to get some veteran leadership out there on the outside. And this is obviously the most exciting time of the year other than football season itself. When the free agency comes up, the draft comes up, you have all these things to actually look forward to. So it's an exciting time. Other teams in our division have already made moves. Saquon got extended for another 2 years. Personally, I don't agree with that. I don't know why they would extend him 2 years when he already has 2 more years left on his deal, especially at the running back position, especially knowing his injury history the past, his career. Just I don't think it was needed right now. Maybe next year you extend him 2 more years, seeing how he does and holds up next year. But what do I know? And then Washington traded for Deebo Samuel for a fifth round pick. I don't know why Washington fans are so hype about that. I don't know if they've watched Deebo the past season. He just overweight, looks slow, just he's not the same guy he was 3 years ago. Will he make Washington better? Maybe, but I don't think it's moving the needle to put them over the top where they can go win a Super Bowl. But nonetheless, teams in our division are making moves. They're trying to get better. And Dallas has to do the same thing next week. They can't just stay stagnant like they did last year and wait about a month until they signed Eric Kendricks. That's not going to work if they want to go win the Super Bowl. And I've seen people say, oh, they're going to be all in this season. CD Lamb just had a tweet yesterday saying, he wants to win. Other guys will have to want to win. Micah Parsons tweeted not too long ago that they're ready to make a push, ready to put this thing over the top. Knowing Jerry, knowing Steven, who knows? We could go into next week and not hear anything until maybe Thursday or Friday with them signing anyone and letting all the free agents go off the board before then. So I'm not going to get my hopes up with us signing any of these guys, but I hope they do keep the, guys in-house immediately as quick as possible. Get that stuff done. Don't leave room for any doubt them not extending Micah. They need to get that done ASAP. That's priority number one. But yeah, should be exciting next week. I hope we sign at least a few of the guys that I named. But with that being said, appreciate y'all watching. See y'all next time.